Have you ever planned a trip? Like really planned it? You saved it on your phone for months. You were mentally focused on it. You told yourself this is the one that's going to help you to reconnect. And then you get there and felt somehow more alone than you did at home. I know, it doesn't make sense. The setting is beautiful. The wine is good. The kids are occupied. You're technically on holiday. And yet you're at dinner and the conversation is just fine. You're polite. You're pleasant. You take the photos, and then 2 a.m. rolls around, and you're lying in the dark staring at the ceiling while your partner's asleep, and you're replaying the whole trip going, why did I feel more disconnected there than I do in our normal Tuesday at our home? That's what we're talking about today in this Dear Katie episode. Now, for those of you who are new to the podcast, a Dear Katie episode is where one of you submits an anonymous question so that I get a chance to give you some support and give a chance for others to hear, hey, I'm not alone. Other people have this problem too. So go grab a warm drink and let's dive in. Welcome to Relationship Reset, a podcast for high-achieving couples who've been together for over a decade and don't want to feel like roommates anymore. I'm Katie Rustler, relationship strategist and couples counselor with almost 20 years of experience helping ambitious couples reconnect, strengthen communication, and turn their relationship into the best part of their success story. This podcast is about using practical tools and a lot of real talk to help you understand your patterns, stop feeling stuck and discouraged, and start working on your relationship in ways that actually fit your busy life. Because your relationship shouldn't be the cost of your success, it should be the best part of it. So let's dive in. Okay, here's the letter. Dear Katie, my husband and I just got back from 2 weeks in Greece. It was supposed to be our big reconnection trip. We've been so busy this year. Ships passing in the night, you know the feeling. We had the best intentions, and don't get me wrong, the trip was beautiful. But about 4 days in, I realized I felt more alone than I do at home. We were polite, we were pleasant, we went to dinners, we took all the photos we were supposed to, but we never really talked. Not really. He was on his phone more than I expected. I tried a couple times to bring things up, and it didn't go anywhere. By the end, I was counting down the days to getting home, which is the opposite of what I wanted. Now we're back and nothing has changed, and I don't know what to do with that. Was the trip a failure? Is our marriage done for? Or am I asking too much of 2 weeks in the sun? Thanks so much. Lost on vacation. Okay. What you're describing is one of the most common experiences that I see in long-term couples, and I know the feeling too personally. From the outside, the holiday looks great. You have the photos to prove it, and yet something felt off the whole time. And you came home feeling more confused than when you left. Look, this isn't about failure. This is just information we need to take in. And I'm going to help you unpack what it's telling you. Here's something I've noticed in my work with couples. We treat the big trip like it's a reset button. Like if we can just get away from the school runs and the work emails and the endless logistics of keeping a family alive, the connection will just show up, right? Like intimacy is just waiting in the back wings to just swoop in. And sometimes it does show up. Sometimes you get that morning, that slow coffee, nobody's rushing anywhere. You actually look at each other and laugh about something stupid. And for a second, it feels like the early days. I really love those moments personally. And they are real. But here's what I want you to understand, because this actually changed the way I think about holidays entirely. The disconnection doesn't stay home when you travel. It packs its bag and gets in the car with you. Everything you haven't said, everything that's a bit off for the last few months, it's in the suitcase right next to the sunscreen. And what the holiday actually does when the busyness is gone and the routines are gone, and kids are finally at the pool, is it gives you a very clear, uninterrupted view of exactly where you two are, which is wonderful when things are good and really confronting when there's been a gap quietly growing. I worked with a client who came back from a 10-day anniversary trip to Portugal and said something I have not forgotten. She said, I've never been more aware of how good we are at being in the same place without actually being together. 10 days. And she walked away with a clear realization that they were living parallel lives, which, and I mean this, was actually the beginning of their best work together because they stopped kind of smoke screening themselves and going, it'll get better. Oh, this is just a phase. Oh, the vacation will help. They stopped hoping that a trip would fix it and started dealing with what was actually there. And that's where you are right now, lost on vacation. And this is not a bad place to be. So let's talk about 3 things today. What's actually happening when a vacation exposes the disconnection? why trying to have the big talk on holiday usually backfires, and what to actually do now that you're home. So, number one, vacation doesn't create connection. It shows you the truth about it. Here's the thing about stripping away all the noise and busyness of normal life. You find out what's underneath it. And for a lot of high achieving couples who've been running at full capacity for years, what's underneath the busyness is a gap that's been growing so slowly, so quietly, that neither of you really noticed until you're sitting across from each other at a restaurant in Portugal going, huh? See, Dr. Gottman's research talks about something called bids for connection, the small, everyday moments where one partner reaches toward the other. It's in a look or a comment, hey, come look at this. And what happens in busy, high achieving couples is that those bids start to get missed, not maliciously, but because everyone's running. And over time, when the bids keep getting missed, people stop making them. And you end up with two people who are very efficient at managing a shared life and not very practiced at actually reaching towards each other. Vacation removes the managing, and suddenly the reaching is all there is. And if you haven't been doing it at home, it feels weird or forced or just absent. Have you ever noticed that you and your partner have your best conversations in the car? Not the fancy dinner, not the planned date night, the car. When you're both facing forward, nobody's making direct eye contact, your brain has something low-key to do. That's not a coincidence. Low-pressure proximity is where real connection tends to happen, and vacation, with all its romantic expectation and beautiful scenery, is actually quite high pressure. Which is why, number two, the harder you try to connect on holiday, the worse it tends to go. This is the part nobody warns you about, and I want to address what she said directly in her letter, that she tried to bring things up and it didn't go anywhere. That is not evidence that your marriage is beyond repair. That is evidence that the timing was off. And timing is completely fixable. Here's what I see happen constantly. One partner, almost always the one who is more tuned in to the emotional temperature of the relationship, gets to the holiday and thinks, okay, this is it. We're finally away from everything. This is our moment. And they bring something up. And the partner hears it as, we're going to have a hard conversation on the trip. That was supposed to be a break from all the hard things. And their nervous system just braces, not because it doesn't care, but because it was probably also hoping this week was going to feel lighter. And it doesn't. And the partner doesn't know what to do with that. So they go quiet or vague or find something very interesting on their phone, or maybe even get defensive. Esther Perel talks about this, and I love how she frames it. She says, we often bring our unmet needs to moments of closeness because those moments feel safe enough to finally say what we've been holding. But the person receiving it doesn't always experience it as a moment of closeness. They experience it as an ambush, not because the need isn't valid. It absolutely is, but because the setup wasn't there. So can I normalize something for you? The holiday is not the place for the big conversation. It can be the place where you realize you need to have the big conversation. It can be the place where you get clear on what you've been avoiding. But the actual work, the real repair, that happens at home when you've both agreed to show up for it. Not squeeze between like a boat trip and a sunset dinner, right? Like, no, don't add pressure to what should be moments of relaxation. And while we're at it, let's talk about the phone. I hear about this one all the time. One partner checking out into their screen while the other sits there feeling invisible. I'm definitely not going to excuse it, but I want to reframe it because it does matter. The phone is usually a symptom, not the actual problem. It's what someone reaches for when they don't know how to be in the emotional space they're in. So the conversation that needs to happen isn't stop looking at your phone. It's, I miss you. What's getting in the way of us actually being here together? Very different conversation, much less likely to end in defensiveness, right? Okay, number 3, coming home without the reconnection you hoped for isn't the end. It's the start of the real thing. Lost on Vacation asked, was the trip a failure? And I want to answer that clearly. No, the trip was information. Yeah, maybe expensive and beautiful and slightly painful, but information no less. What Greece showed you is that the gap both of you have probably been sensing but not quite naming is real. And it doesn't go away with a change of scenery. It needs to be addressed on its own terms. That's not a failure, that's clarity. And honestly, clarity is where all the good work starts. This is really about that trip making the invisible visible. You can no longer scroll past the disconnection because it's right there. It's unavoidable. It was fully in the Mediterranean sunshine. But the couples who use that moment as a starting point, they often do the most meaningful work of their whole relationship. The couples who go home and slip straight back into the busyness to avoid thinking about it, the gap keeps growing. So the question now isn't, how do I make the next holiday better? The question is, what do I do with what I now know? So I want you to name what you notice without turning it into an accusation. Not, you were on your phone the whole time and I felt completely invisible. Yeah, that's true, but it opens with blame. And blame puts people on the defense immediately. I know I would be. And then you're arguing about the phone instead of talking about what's actually going on. So try this instead. I've been sitting with something since we got back. On the trip, I was really craving connection with you, and I didn't know how to find it. Can we talk about what gets in the way for us? You see the difference? You're starting with your experience, not from a verdict on your partner's behavior. You're opening a door for a discussion. That small shift in how you start the conversation changes everything about where it goes. One thing, though, for the future, don't have this conversation the day you land when you've got jet lag, okay? Let the laundry get done. Give it a couple days. Then sit down and open the door. Next, I want you to find out what connection actually means to both of you, because it's probably not the same thing. This is something I come back to with almost every couple I work with. Connection means different things to different people. You might feel most connected when y'all are talking, like really talking. And your partner might feel most connected when y'all are doing something together, side by side, no agenda, not needing to go deep. See, that's not incompatibility. That's two people who haven't yet worked out each other's connection language or love language. And the reason holidays sometimes produce the most disappointing attempts at connection is because one person planned it entirely around how they connect, without realizing the other person connects differently. So ask each other in a really calm moment, not during that debrief conversation we talked about before, what did you enjoy most about the trip? What made you feel closest to me, even briefly? What would you have wanted more of? You're going to learn something, and you'll have something to actually work with going forward. Okay, lastly, stop saving it all for the big occasion. Got to build the small moments now. The holiday was supposed to be the big reconnection. It didn't deliver. So here's the reframe, and this is very important, so listen. Connection isn't built in 2-week blocks once a year. It's built in 5-minute moments every single day. My husband and I started occasionally playing cards together in the evenings. I know, very exciting life we lead. But genuinely, we'll sit down, deal out the cards, and sometimes we talk. And what I've noticed is that when my brain has something low stakes to do, the real conversation just comes out naturally. There's no agenda, no pressure, no next steps conversation in my mind of, okay, now I'm going to say this. It's just two people in the same room actually present with each other. So what's your version of playing cards? Is it a walk after dinner? A coffee before the kids wake up? 10 minutes on the couch, phones face down, asking each other like one question about your day? Not just how was your day, but like truly, how's that thing going on? How are you experiencing this? It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be consistent. And you have to protect it like it matters, because it does. So, lost in translation, your trip wasn't a failure. You weren't asking too much. You were hoping for something real, and that hope, that's the most important thing you've got. What Greece gave you, even though it didn't feel like a gift, is clarity, a clear view of where you are. And that's the beginning of everything, not the end of anything. You didn't go all that way just to find out your marriage is broken. You went all that way and found out it needs tending. It needs support and growth. Those are very different things. And supporting it to grow, that's absolutely something you can do. Okay, and to the listeners, if this one resonated for you today and you're shaking your head up and down, yeah, I think almost all of us have been there at some point, right? Lost on Vacation is not the first one to feel this way. If you've got a question for a future Dear Katie episode, you can submit it anonymously in the link in the show notes. And if you try some of the things I've shared today and you still feel stuck, that's exactly what a relationship game plan call is for. It's free, it's 45 minutes, and we look at exactly where the two of you are and what would actually help. You can find the link in the show notes as well. Okay, I'll see you next week. Before you go, I want to leave you with this. The effort you put into your relationship is one of the most important investments you'll ever make. How you communicate and grow together shapes your home, your leadership, and the example you set for the people around you. Relationship work is truly legacy work, and it quietly impacts more lives than we often realize. If this episode resonated, consider sharing it with someone you care about, a partner, a friend, or another couple who's building a full life and want their relationship to be the best part of it too. And if you're enjoying these conversations, make sure to follow or subscribe to Relationship Reset. Leaving a rating or review also helps this message reach more couples who are ready to grow with intention. I'll see you next week.